Whenever you want, Aaron. It's all good. It's all set.
Well, we're gonna. I know there are quite a lot of people logging on. There are quite a lot of people logged on. So I just want to kind of open this webinar and say thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and most of all, thank you, Elsie, for joining us. Wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you.
This is the third monthly webinar for the Three Principles Global Community. And as most of you know, the idea of the community is to have a community-based non-profit that is committed to allowing us to come together and keep the simplicity and the energy around the three principles as discovered by Princess Sydney Vane. And as part of that, we really want to make a lot of resources. We want to bring people together, and we want to make a lot of resources available to people. We want to be able to learn together. We want to be able to kind of hear from each other and teach people in our understanding of the principles. And the webinars are part of that process, and this is the third one. And whereas last time it was my job to introduce the speaker, this time it's my job to introduce the new host. So, as people may or may not know, these are community-based organizations. We want to get people involved, and it's a volunteer-based organization. So we kind of run by the enthusiasm and contribution of members. And I'm actually going to be passing on the hosting duties to Corrine Harrison, who's a principal-based teacher who was on our institute last year. He's a wonderful person, and also has a background in Elsie. So we've increased the competence of our host hugely by moving from me to Corrine. So it's my pleasure to host Corrine. She'll be the one that will be hosting these events, introducing the speakers, dealing with telling you how to ask questions, unmuting you, facilitating the whole event. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Corrine into that role, and I know she'll do a much better job than I was doing. I think I'll hand over to Corrine, and she can introduce Elsie and see if there are any opening comments from Don.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. So, hello everybody, and thank you for joining the webinar tonight. Before I introduce Elsie, I'm just going to tell you how you can basically raise your hand to be able to ask questions towards the end of the webinar. Towards the bottom of the page, on the right-hand corner, I think, on your screen, you should have like a little icon with a hand in it. And if you click on that, it will tell me you raise your hand. Or you can send the chat to the host, and I'll make sure I unmute you so you can ask your question. So I hope that's okay. During the conference, you will be all muted by default, so I have to unmute you so you can talk. So now I'm going to, it's with great pleasure that I'm going to introduce you to Elsie Spittle, our speaker for tonight. Elsie was a close friend from Sid Evans, and she knew him before he had his epiphany. So she was also one of the first person he shared the three principles with outside of his family. And as a consequence, she also the first one that actually traveled and started teaching about the three principles with Sid Evans. So she's kind of a special person, one of that first person that been involved with Sid after he basically had that big insight. She worked in a variety of settings, and from what I understand, from corporation to juvenile justice, so she has a breadth of experience that is very, very, very valuable. And in 2008, she was hired by Sid to set up and teach at the Three Principles School, and that school is still running. So I'll let her talk more about it if she wants to. So really, really, what is for me something very special about Elsie, she talked about living in love, and what strikes me is how beautifully and easily and in a gentle way. She gets you there when you listen to her. So with no further ado, I'd like to pass the hand to Elsie. Thank you, Elsie.
Well, thank you. What a beautiful introduction, Corinne. I just, you've touched my heart, and I thank you for that, those wonderful words. And I want to thank the Three Principles Global Community for giving me this opportunity. I consider it an honor to be able to talk to so many people that have signed up for this call. And I was just saying to Aaron and to Corinne that I know Sid would be so excited at seeing how his message is getting out through this new technology that is making it available, you know, just so much more available throughout the world that it's amazing to see this gift getting out. And I really appreciate what the Three Principles Global Community Organization is doing. I know that the organization was inspired by Sid, and since they've launched their website and have gotten more visibility in the world today, I know that they're offering a wonderful, wonderful service, and I applaud them for doing that and for honoring Sid in the way they have. So thank you to the executive team, and just, you know, the best to you all as you continue this journey. I selected my topic. It's difficult for me sometimes in advance to select a topic, to put words around what I'm going to talk about, because I never know until the moment. But in the last couple of months, the theme that keeps emerging for me is the simplicity and the power of this message, of these three principles, and the naturalness of these three principles. And so the title that came to mind was, and I have to look to see the three principles as home base, because I really offer to people and encourage people to see more deeply that these principles are our default setting, that these principles aren't something we need to apply or learn or study. Yes, there's opportunities to study. I studied with Sid, I learned with Sid. But truly, the insight that I had that really started me on my journey was my insight. It was wisdom revealed from within me that opened my mind and my eyes to a new world. And that's what I think is so powerful. Sometimes I hear people talk about the potential of the principles and the potential of people. To me, it's beyond potential. These principles are us. You know, these principles are humanity in action. And so it's beyond potential. It's real. These principles are our gift. We're born with them. You know, we're using them whether we know or not. I mean, this was the gift that was revealed to me when I had that first insight that thought creates feeling. It's a simple insight. And I know generally now people will sometimes raise their eyebrows at me as if to say, what, you didn't know that? But 38 years ago, that was new. That was really new to me. And I understand it was new to the field of psychology, that we actually create our experience in the moment. As much as I knew about thought in the early days was I saw thought and thinking as something, as an analytical process, as a cognitive process. I didn't understand that we use thought to create. That's what thought does. Thought creates our experience, our personal reality. And that's a powerful, powerful gift. It's extremely empowering for people to know that. Again, for me, I'll use myself as an example. I thought my reality was sort of created and shaped by circumstances. By the circumstances I was born in, by the circumstances in how I was brought up, how I was educated, by lack in my life, lack of things in my life. And so to know that we have the power to transform our lives goes beyond potential. It goes directly to the source of transformation, which is these three principles. And so I really want to impress that point and encourage people to look at that more deeply, that this is our default setting. Wisdom is our default setting. And the more we know that, the more we point ourselves back home to the principles and wisdom as our home base, the stronger it becomes in our life, the more impact it has in our life and in those that we are associated with or work with. And even more than that, in terms of the global picture, the more we reside in wisdom, the more impact this spiritual energy has upon the world. And so that's what I want to offer you all today, because I know we need teachers. We need teachers to share this message more deeply in the world. There are wonderful programs available to sort of teach the mechanics of the principles and the feeling, to introduce people to this deep feeling of their wisdom and the deep feeling of the principles. So, you know, there's the combination of the formless, which is that spiritual energy that we're all made up of and that the world is made up of. And then there's the how-tos, which is the form of the principles. The shortcut home is pointing yourself back there, you know, pointing yourself inside as opposed to trying to find the answer outside. Once you've pointed yourself inside and you're living more securely in that safe, powerful, spiritual energy, when you go back outside into the form of the physical world, your learning about the principles is enhanced. You learn more freely about the principles. You can enjoy it more freely. There's not sometimes the effort that I hear from people when they're trying to learn the principles. There's an effortlessness that is part of the gift of seeing the principles as home base. It allows you to learn anything and everything more freely. In my mind, it's like the perfect combination of wisdom and the intellect working hand in hand in partnership. Because here's another spiritual fact. I used to think that the intellect as part of the physical form, because the intellect is a learned thing. I used to see that as like a separate entity. But the more I find myself living at home, living in wisdom, the more I see that it's the same thing, that the intellect and wisdom is the same coin. You know, wisdom is one side of the coin and the intellect is the other side of the coin. But the spiritual fact is it's the same coin. And for us to see that as human beings, it cuts out the middleman. It cuts out the gap. And that's the shortcut. An important thing to realize, though, is that wisdom is the master, and the intellect is the servant of the master. And so that's why when you live in home base, and we already are living there, I want to, make that clear. We're already living at home. This is the beauty, like sometimes when I talk about going home, the word going is misleading because then people think, well, I have some place to go. I have something to do. So I want to make that point that we're really not going anywhere. We're already there. So it's simply as if I'm sitting in my chair. It's just simply turning around in my chair and looking to where I already am. I'm already home. And as soon as you consider that, even the consideration that you already are where you are meant to be, you already are living in your default setting, it opens the door and it releases even more wisdom and more practical guidance in our life. This is what I love. And what Sid shared with us at the very beginning, that the moment you realize you are already at home, that there is no place to go, the more you become your own teacher, where insights come to you more readily. They're more readily available because you're living in the world of insight. Wisdom is the world of insight. And so no matter what is going on in your life, the insights are more readily available to help you. Solace is more readily available to soothe you if you come up against a challenge that you're not sure how to meet. If some new adventure comes your way and you might experience a moment or two or three of insecurity about, well, this is the first time I've been asked to present to this group and I don't know how to talk about the principles. Just turn inward again. Just know to do that, and your wisdom will come out and reassure you that because you are the principles in action, you'll automatically know how to be in service. You'll have a feeling of service that will make you the best presenter, the best teacher in the world, because you're coming from home. You're coming from home base. And whatever is most appropriate to share with a person or individual or family, whoever you're talking to, wisdom will do your work for you. That's what I want to offer. That's what I want to encourage, for all of us to see more fully, more deeply, all the time, how the principles do the work for us. I remember the first time I was asked to talk by Sid. Dr. Pransky, Dr. George Pransky, and Dr. Roger Mills had invited Sid to the University of Oregon in Eugene to talk there for the first time. This was after George and Roger had been coming back and forth to the island for a period of time, and were really starting to gain understanding from within themselves the importance and the relevance of these three principles in the fields of psychology and psychiatry. They were really getting the picture that this is indeed a new paradigm in the fields of psychology, that instead of looking at dysfunction, the field of psychology could jump a whole lot of levels and begin to see that there's innate health, that people are born with innate health, innate wisdom inside. And so they invited Sid to talk for the first time at the university, and Sid invited me to accompany him. So on one hand, I was absolutely delighted and elated to be offered this privilege of accompanying him. On the other hand, my insecurity came to the top, and I was terrified to do public speaking, particularly to professionals of this caliber. I never went to college. The limit of my education was grade 12. And so I had a lot of insecurity bound up in the lack of education, the lack of what I considered my intellectual understanding. And Sid didn't talk to me a lot about this, about my insecurity. He didn't talk at all. He just reassured me that because I'd had one insight, thought creates feeling, that insight was my presentation, that all I needed to do was talk story. That's how he put it, talk story, share my story. So, you know, again, on one hand, I sort of heard that, and I would feel very safe when I was with him. But then came the moment where he left me with Roger and George and said, okay, now, dearie, you go ahead, and George and Roger will introduce you, and then you're on your own. And once again, I moved into insecurity. And as I was walking down this long, long hallway to the auditorium, I just was petrified and walking as stiff as a board between these two gentlemen. And I'm amazed that they didn't have to hold my arms to sort of keep me upright. They did a lovely job of introducing me, and then I was on my own on the stage. I know I babbled for about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. In my fear, I didn't know what to say. But something mystical happened then. And I shared my insight and told the story of my resistance prior to that insight, of how I loved to be around Sid because I loved the feeling he lived in, the feeling of love and understanding and compassion for my fear and my husband's fear. But I didn't want him to talk to me about these principles. As soon as he would talk to me, all my beliefs came to the surface and fought. There was just such resistance, and so I would say to him, Sid, I love to be with you and your wife. It's such a nice feeling that you live in. I love seeing how your relationship is changing with your wife and your children. I love seeing how you tell these stories about, you know, going back into work and how you see your work so differently from when you used to hate your work, and now you have such compassion for your co-workers, and you're asked to talk to the plant manager, and I love your stories, but don't talk to me about the principles. And so when I sat there and my babbling stopped on the stage, and I told my story of my resistance and the insight that transformed me and changed my life in an instant, that from total anger of the last time when Sid and his wife visited, and I was so upset and so beside myself that once again, here was Sid coming to disturb my world. That's how I thought about it, that once again, this feel-good guy and his wife who just shone with happiness were coming up my driveway, that I had to hide from them. I couldn't bear to face them and their happiness. And I hid from them in the most appropriate place. I hid from them in the bathroom. You know, it's like that was the safest place I could think of to hide. And yet, despite myself, despite my fear, wisdom rose up and faced the fear and propelled me out of that bathroom to run after Sid as he walked out of my house and to say, "Wait, Sid, come back. Come back." So there was my wisdom. There was evidence that despite my fear and despite my fear, I brought him back into the house. I could not invite them to sit down because, you know, the fear was still there. I was going back and forth between two worlds, the world of fear and the world of wisdom. Tell me more, Sid. No, don't sit down. Tell me more. And he took one look at my face and, of course, immediately saw the desperation in my face. And he put his arm around me and with such love said to me, "You have God inside of you, as does every human being in this world. And you'll be okay, dearie. You'll be okay." You'd think those words would fill me up as they do now. But in that moment of time, my fear and all my belief system rose up once again, and I literally pushed them out of the house. My world of fear could stand no more, and I could not take any more. He left with his wife, and as he was driving down the driveway, his wife said to him, "I guess that's the last we'll see of Elsie and Ken." She was so upset, but I guess that's the end of our friendship. And Sid said to her, "No, pet. Elsie heard something today." And Barb said, "Oh my, she sure has a funny way of showing it." And so that's that. And so I told that story at the University of Eugene. And of course, the moment I shared my insight, I was at home. I was at home base, and the story came out as it did now. The feeling of home base came out of me as it does now. And the 70, 80 people that were in the audience were touched. And there was a silence in the room that I had never experienced or could have imagined would be present when I spoke. I had felt that much, much, much deeper when Sid spoke. I never, ever expected that a little bit of that powerful feeling, that spiritual energy would manifest when I spoke. But it did. I was a teacher. You know, the miracle of that in my mind, that past an individual's fear and insecurity, lack of intellect, lack of education, one insight and the story and the transformation that accompanies that insight, the spiritual essence that's released when you share like that from home base, that's power. It's beyond potential. With all due respect, it's beyond potential. Potential to me means what may be possible. Power is now. Power is a spiritual fact. It's ours to own. It is ours. It simply remains for us as human beings to say, yes, I am this power in action. It's important to own this with respect, to cherish this gift within us. I remember not too long before Sid's passing, as he was impressing upon Chip and myself how he wanted us to operate the 3 principles school that he asked us to start, and that he asked us to focus on the nature of the principles and of life and of humanity, the nature of the world, the form and the formless. And there was a point on a conference call where Chip and I were talking, and Sid had been invited by the host of the calls to join us. And I remember saying something about consciousness in a story I was sharing with the group. And Sid said to me, even during the call, I mean, he called me on what I was saying during the call, which sort of took me aback. It's like, ooh. But he wasn't wasting any time. Oh, I apologize for the other line is ringing, but someone else will pick it up. But he wasn't wasting any time. Like he could have waited until later, but he told me in the moment, and so it was a real wake-up call in the moment. And he said, Elsie, you're talking about consciousness as if it's not yours. He said, you want to own consciousness. It's your consciousness. Why are you talking about it as if it's outside yourself? You're talking about consciousness, not your consciousness. And I was taken aback. I'd never thought of it that way. I was seeing consciousness, the principle of consciousness, as not me. It was like a thing. I was seeing it as a thing. You know, it was the principle of consciousness, and it was too big for me. Just as mind was too big for me. Thought, the principle of thought, was too big for me. I was part of it. But in seeing myself as a part of it, I wasn't seeing that in order to be a part, I'm the whole. Just like the coin. There's wisdom, there's the intellect. There's no separation, it's one coin. So if you're part of consciousness, you're all of consciousness. And I didn't see that. And so I didn't see that in reality, I wasn't owning and acknowledging the principles as home base, as me. I was just seeing myself as part of it. So I only had part of the power. So when I say own, I don't mean own in the ego sense. I mean own as in it is us. It's acknowledging who and what we really are. That we are wisdom incarnate. That we are the principles in action. Both when we create a wonderful life and wonderful experiences, and from time to time when we create less wonderful experiences. But even those less wonderful experiences, the more you're living in home base, the more perspective you have about those less wonderful experiences, the more protection you have. This was something when I was talking with Linda Pransky a while back. She and I were doing another 2 days of taping. And I love talking with her because we never know what we're going to say. And yet the moment we get together, there's such a powerful, respectful listening that happens between us that we really are at home together. And in that togetherness, wonderful insights emerge from us that I look at in wonder at her as she's saying something that I've never considered before, and she tells me the same thing, that, you know, she hears something different from me. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful partnership and exploration in depth of who we really are together. There's, pardon me, a oneness that happens, and that's a gift. And I just, that was something that came out of her in the moment, and I heard it more deeply, that no matter what goes on, you know, these less wonderful experiences that happen from time to time, there's this wonderful protection that surrounds us the more we're living in home base. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I didn't know how it would come out, but I wanted to share the naturalness of this gift that is our default setting, and to welcome it, to embrace it, to cherish it more fully, and to know, not to believe, but to know that the more you own yourself, your spiritual self, the more beautiful life you'll have, and the better teacher, business person, parent, wife, husband, father, practitioner, whatever, whoever you are, will be enhanced when you live at home base. So I'm going to open it for questions now, and I look forward to them, to see what you have to say, either an insight you might have had or a question.
If you want to ask a question, you can either raise your hand or send me a chat, and I make sure I unmute you.
And to raise your hand, everybody, underneath the list of names is a little picture of a hand. Just click on that like Janet's done.
Okay. Okay, Janet, you're on mute if you want to ask your question.
Okay, thanks, Karin. Hi, Elsie.
Hi.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much. There's so many nuggets in what you said for me, and I know I'm going to have a wonderful time just listening to it again.
Oh.
But I think, for me, a couple of things that really stood out for me were the difference between power and potential. That was huge for me, realizing that potential is something that might be, but power is now. And we have that now, and that just really blew me away, thinking, oh my goodness. Yeah,
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm delighted you heard that. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful.
This is amazing. And also, when Sid said to you about owning consciousness, because as you were saying that, I realized that when I'm sharing, when I'm teaching, I talk about consciousness as if it's something that's out there. And once again, it was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't, even though I'm talking about it and I know it, I wasn't owning it. And what came to me was, as I own it, I now know that as I own it, original insight will come in the moment as I'm speaking. I know that.
Beautiful. Oh, you've made my day. You've made my day. Honestly, if you're the only person that heard that, you know, with all due respect to everybody else, but you've made my day that you've got those two things. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Elsie, we have another question from Kat, and she'd like to know, she said, Elsie, I hear you say a lot, the intellectual is a servant. I like the sound of it. I'm just not getting this quite yet.
Okay. That's a very excellent question. It's an excellent question. The intellect is a learned thing. You know, it's a gift. It's truly a gift. As I say, it's part of the same coin. But the intellect is learned information. You know, it's what we learn from our parents, from birth and from school, and you know, we all have different degrees of intellect. But what I've observed is that when people uncover their wisdom, that enhances the intellect. I'll give you an example. First of all, for myself, like I always had an insecurity about my lack of intellect because of my lack of education. And there, you know, as I started to get more into working with the mental health professionals who were well educated and all that, that was a real wake-up call for me, because Sid would say, don't look at the form of who they are. Don't look at the disguise, you know, at what they're presenting, that they're psychologists or psychiatrists or, you know, medical doctors or counselors. Look at who they are underneath their presentation. See that they too are spiritual souls, and talk to that. Don't talk to the form of who they are. And I heard that, you know, that immediately reassured me and gave me much latitude and comfort in how I talk to people, how I talk to CEOs when I went into business, how I talk to police chiefs, and so on and so forth. That rid me of an enormous amount of insecurity, seeing who people are under the disguise of what they present to the world. And so I saw my own intellect increasing, that as my insecurity lessened, I could read a book and absorb more, because I had a quiet mind. That's what it is. It's just coming to me in the moment. My mind wasn't filled with thoughts of insecurity. When you're living in home base, your mind is quiet and clear, and it's spacious. There's room in your mind. And so I could learn intellectually better, because I had space to absorb more. And so that's how my intellect grew. And I was aware of more of the form of the world and of books, and I found it fascinating. Instead of being insecure and sort of dismissive because of my insecurity, I embraced new things. I embraced technology. Before, in my insecurity about, oh, my intellect is so minimal that I don't know how to learn. I don't know how to learn new technology because I'm too stupid. With wisdom, I was comfortable. I had room in my mind, and I could learn new technology with ease. Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes. But even the times where I did struggle with something in the technology or some other system in the form of whatever, I had protection. I had perspective. I didn't get gripped by it as much. So that's what I mean, that the intellect is the servant of wisdom. But it's still part of the same coin. And so as my wisdom was released, my intellect grew, and there was less confrontation between them. There was this partnership, this wonderful partnership, and that's what it was. Just, you know, a blend, so that I hardly see the intellect as a separate thing anymore. You know, I just see more of the oneness in everything. And when I don't, when I see a separation, I find the separation fascinating instead of disturbing. That's also what happens the more we live at home. Things aren't just disturbing, they're fascinating. And not so much as curious, because for me, maybe this is just me, but I can find that sometimes curiosity leads me into why. Like if something happens in my life and I'm just fascinated, I feel like a neutrality, where I'm just fascinated, and I have more patience to wait to see what is revealed to me. If I move into curiosity, why jumps up. And then I can very easily move into trying to figure it out. And there I am. I'm out of home base, and I'm working in the world of form, trying to figure it out. That's what I see. So I like fascination. Does that answer your question about the intellect and wisdom?
Elsie, I just received something from Kat, and she said, wow, yes, I think I found that for myself since I discovered the principle. Thank you. And she added, I love it. So I think, yes, that's your question.
Thank you. Lovely.
I think we have someone else that would like to add something. Tony? Tony, you're unmuted if you want to share.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi, Tony.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
It's just really a comment. I just loved hearing about, a bit like Janet actually, the power as opposed to the potential, and also about being the principles completely, not just part of them. And again, that just given me an amazing insight. That was exactly what I was doing. I was just looking at being a part of consciousness or a part of mind. So, wow, just thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Tony. I'm so glad that you heard that as well. That's beautiful.
Perfect. Thanks, Elsie.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to ask questions? If you do, just raise your hand. Nobody?
No?
Check.
Okay. Well, I'll wait another moment or two just in case somebody has.
Janet has something else you'd like to add. You are muted, Janet.
Thanks, Karen. Once again, just listening to that last part there, when you're talking about fascination and curiosity, and that just highlighted to me, because it's true when I ask myself, when I come from a place of curiosity, I ask myself the question why, and I never thought there was anything wrong with that. I just thought, well, that's what a curious person asks, because it's about getting to the bottom of it. But as what's come to me is that from a place of fascination, it's like you can let that go and the answer will be revealed to you whenever. There's no urgency, there's no getting to the bottom of it.
Beautiful. That's right. That's right, Janet. It's not like you're denying anything or that you don't want to get to the bottom of something. You said it beautifully. Just that it's the patience, having the patience, and the answer will come. You will find out whatever it is that you need to know about a particular situation. Good for you. Good for you that you see that.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. My goodness. I have loved this because I've heard things that I haven't, that I've not said before or heard myself before. So I'll look forward to listening too to see what I said, Corinne, because this thing about fascination and curiosity, that's still tickling me. Because that's a really powerful thing, And human beings, I think the nature of human beings is curiosity. But you know that old saying, curiosity killed the cat? That's probably not very nice. But what brought it back? Do you know? Have you ever heard that saying before? Curiosity killed the cat, but generosity brought it back.
Oh, I've never heard that. Wow.
Maybe that's a Canadian, a rather earthy Canadian saying. And pardon me if I've offended anybody. I'm sorry, but it just struck me in the moment here. But it's wonderful that so many things, like the intellect and like curiosity, are, as you live at home base, that they take on different qualities from the inside out. That curiosity in the form of life or in the form of the intellect can lead you astray, can lead you further from home. But inside, curiosity looks like fascination. And then you get the answer, but it's the answer comes clean. There's no residue around the answer. Outside curiosity, you can gather residue. And same as the intellect from the inside is a blessing, is a gift. And I just remembered I was going to share the example about how the intellect is enhanced when you uncover your wisdom. And I shared an example of myself, but I also wanted to share an example of working in communities, what are considered a lot of urban communities where there's a lot of poverty and crime and illiteracy, and also working with the homeless in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, working in Skid Row, where, again, sometimes the intellect was really minimized because of drug use and how drug use had hurt the brain and, chemical imbalances and all that. And yet, even in those situations, as people uncovered their wisdom, primarily because we as helpers saw beyond the disguise of homelessness and of urban residents being, illiterate or whatever, it was our seeing them as whole and healthy that helped them then see themselves more as whole and healthy. And they, as they uncovered their wisdom, they also uncovered their intellect. And they began to read more, and their grammar improved. Roger and I had written a primer for working in communities, and it was very simple and down to earth, and a lot of residents moved past their insecurity as they uncovered their wisdom and would ask their children to help them learn how to read this primer. And so again, it's an example of the intellect being in partnership with the wisdom and being enhanced, so that there was this learning going on together of wisdom and the intellect. So that's it. So, Corrine, what do you think? Are we ready to call it a day or an evening?
We have one more person that likes to ask a question, and
Okay.
it's Claire. So I'm going to unmute her now.
Okay.
Claire, you're unmuted if you want to ask your question.
Okay. Hello, Elsie.
Hi, Claire.
Hello, how are you? It was more a comment, really, because nobody else was talking. I just wanted to say it's lovely to hear your voice again and to hear everything that you had to say. And as always, it washes over me and I can't remember particular bits. It'll start with me back later. But I particularly loved your recounting your journey and your first insight with Sid, and about you having your feet in two worlds, feeling like you had your feet in two worlds. I can definitely relate to that. And I'm so much happier these days now. My feet feel like they're in one world.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just lovely to hear your voice again and see you.
Oh, thank you very much, Claire, for sharing that. And I'm delighted for you and your family and everybody that you come into contact with, because it truly is, you know, the more you're living at home base and you've got your feet grounded in home base, the more you offer the world just being who you are, living at home. You touch the world, all of you touch the world. So once again, I want to thank you, Corrine, for helping me with the technology and the few conversations that we've had as we've tested the system and so on. And Aaron, thank you very much for being part of the Three Principles Global Community and part of the executive team that invited me to participate. I thank you all again. I consider it an honor to be invited to talk with you all, and to thank all of the participants for signing up the call. It's truly been a privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie, very much. It was fantastic, and I think I can join everybody. I received a lot of chatting to tell you thank you, basically, in various ways. So I think everybody's going to join to say thank you. But before we close, I'd like to open to Don and let him wrap up the session, if that's okay with you.
Wonderful.
Don, you're unmute if you want to go ahead.
Well, great. Thanks, Corrine. Elsie, I just wanted to thank you on behalf of 3PGC for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us. We're delighted and honored to have had you, and you gave a wonderful talk, and I can tell by all the chat that goes on around it how deeply you've touched everyone. And we had a terrific turnout today, so there are an awful lot of people on the line who are getting the benefit of your words. And as you know, Elsie, we have a number of wonderful teachers in the global community, but you occupy a truly unique position among them. You and Chip and Jan bring a perspective and a history and a depth that we just can't get from anyone else, and we're very, very grateful that you were willing to share it with us today. And I would just want to tell all of our participants that they can connect more with you through your website at 3phd.net, and I would urge them all to go on the 3PGC site and see the excerpt from the wonderful DVD that you and Linda did, and also to look forward to the next one, because I know you and Linda have just completed a new DVD, and if it's half as good as the first one, it'll be another terrific addition to everyone's library. So thanks so much for taking the time and for all your great work, and it's really been an honor to have you. So thank you.
Don, it's a pleasure. Thank you very, very much. And you know, I just have one last thing. I forgot to mention the school, that we are having another session of the school May 30th to June 2nd here on Salt Spring Island. And I thank you for the opportunity. Corinne, you had mentioned something about the school in your introduction, and so I felt the freedom to mention the school at the end here. So thank you again, Dawn. That was just it meant a lot to me what you said. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I'll click off now.
Thank you very much, everybody. And goodbye, Elsie. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.